Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Karaniya matta kusulena yantang santang padang abhisamecha sako ujucha sujucha suvacho jasumudu natimani santu sako cha subharo cha apakitcho cha sallau kavuti Santindriyo cha nepako cha apagabbo kulesu ananugido nachakudang samachare kinchi yena vinyu pareyu pavadeyum sukino va kemino hantu sabbe satta bhavantu sukitata Ye keche panna bhutati tasava tavarava anavasesa dighava ye mahantava majjima rasaka nukatula ditava yeva adita ye chadore vasante avidore Bhutava sambhave siva sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitata naparo parang ekubeta nyate manyete katachinan kanchi vyarosana patigazanya nanya manyasa dukkamichaya Mata yatani yang putang ayusa eka putang anurake evang pisabba bhutesu manasang bhaveya parimanang mettang cha sabba lokasming manasang bhaveya parimanang udhang adocha tiriyancha Asampadang avedang asapatang titang charang nisinova sayanova yavatassa vigitamiddo etang sating aditteya brahmametang viharang idamahu ditincha anupagamma silava dasanena sampano Kameso vinayagedang nahi jatu gambasyan punareti etena sacha vajjena sottume hotu sabbada etena sacha vajjena sottime hotu sabbada etena sacha vajjena sottume hotu sabbada. All right, now the English. One skilled in good, wishing to attain that state of peace, should act thus. One should be able, straight, upright, obedient, gentle, and humble. One should be content, easy to support, with few duties, living lightly, controlled in senses, discreet, not impudent, unattached to families. One should not do any slight wrong, which the wise might censure. May all beings be happy and secure. May all beings have happy minds. Whatever living beings there may be, without exception, weak or strong, long, large, medium, short, subtle or gross, visible or invisible, living near or far, born or coming to birth, may all beings have happy minds. Let no one deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere. Neither from anger nor ill will should anyone wish harm to another. As a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so towards all living beings, one should cultivate a boundless heart. One should cultivate for all the world a heart of boundless loving friendliness, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hatred or resentment. Whether standing, walking, or sitting, lying down, or whenever awake, one should develop this mindfulness. This is called divinely dwelling here, not falling into erroneous views, but virtuous and endowed with vision, removing desire for sensual pleasures. One comes never again to birth in the womb. By the power of this truth, may I always have well-being. By the power of this truth, may I always have well-being. By the power of this truth, may I always have well-being. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, friends. So, very good. So, we didn't miss a lot of chat. So, everybody, welcome to Dhammapalooza. Those of you who are brand new, what we do here is every Monday, at least while I'm in a place that has internet and I can do it, every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern to 10 p.m. Eastern, we have a festival of Dhamma. And this, we usually started out with some chanting, and we get some maybe sutta readings, answer questions, do guided meditation. So it's a full complement of various Dhamma activities that we do today. And as always, we like to have you guys, the community, have a share in how this unfolds. Each Dhammapalooza, for the most part, is different because, for the most part, I don't come to Dhammapalooza with lots of things to talk about. I always have backup. There's always stuff. Like we do have a sutta we can go over that I thought would be interesting for us to go over. However, what I'd like for you guys to do first is, if you have any questions that you'd like us to answer about Buddhism, Dhamma, meditation, about mindfulness, about monks, right? Any questions, any specific topics you'd like for us to discuss, anything like that, please feel free to put it in the chat. When you are typing in the chat, you're not interrupting us, you're not bothering us. It's perfectly fine for the community to have a conversation in the chat. This is supposed to be a community event, right? So people can talk to each other in the chat and things like that. This is not just everybody be quiet and listen to the monks talk. So what we're going to do is, give it a minute or two, just check the chat to see if anybody has any questions, any topics you'd like us to discuss, anything like that. And then if there's nothing, then we'll start the sutta that I decided that might be a good backup to read. So let's look at the chat. Pali is beautiful. English sounds kind of odd with two people chanting. Yeah, it does a little bit.
Well, yeah, because we weren't really chanting, right? There was no established melody. We weren't just reading the Pali. Like, there's a sort of natural cadence to it, but the English is just fresh and new, and it's just there are like 5 major translations of the sutta into English. So, try harmonize with that.
Robert has a very good question. Right? And this is a question that I have always asked. Why is the Buddha always portrayed with a full head of hair if he was a renunciate with a shaved head? Do you know, I've tried to look for a shaven-headed Buddha statue, and I don't think they exist.
He never shaved his head. He never shaved his head. When he went forth, he had the long hair of a prince, and he pulled it up and he cut it. And it's said that through some karmic thing, it sprung into these tight curls on top of his head. So what do they call it? Like cornrows or something, but like really tight little spiral curls. And it said his hair didn't grow again in that point. Now, that's a pretty fantastical kind of story. And it doesn't necessarily jive with the fact that sometimes people mistook the Buddha for somebody else or somebody else for the Buddha. Like, they thought he looked a lot like his cousin Nanda.
And he was called Shaveling a couple of times.
Yeah.
So from what I understand, he shaved his head. Maybe not in the beginning, right? But the whole I'm going to cut my hair off and become a monk thing, that's something that is essentially not in the early texts. That's something that's kind of added later. you don't really kind of get that story of, in the early text of the Buddha saying, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go out and do it, kind of stuff. But essentially, there is an interesting thing in the monastic rules. Technically, you don't have to have a shaved head, right? You could technically have 2 finger lengths worth of hair, right? So technically, Buddhist monks don't need to have a shaved head by the rules. Tradition, that's just the way it is. But yeah, so that's what we can do in answering that question, right?
And it's if you see here on this particular Buddha, so this is of the Thai style, and in the Sukhothai era of Thailand, hundreds of years ago, they put this flame on the top of the Buddha's head as well.
Oh, that's what that is. All right.
I guess it's representing wisdom or the paramis. I don't really know. But so there are a lot of different artistic renditions of the Buddha image. And you can ask about them, and there might be good answers now. So no question is wrong. A good answer, though, usually points back to something like wisdom or the path or the perfections of character.
Oh, hello, Amy. Hello, Sierra. The closest I've seen is the Buddha with a mohawk made by the Against the Stream. I've seen that picture.
Yeah.
That's a funny one. So Adriana has a good Dhamma question, but there's a few minor questions that were asked after her that I figured we can knock out real quick, and then go back to Adriana's question. So why aren't your eyebrows shaved like they do in Thailand? They're Theravada too.
We were just talking about this the other day. So actually, we both started in a tradition from the Siam Nikaya or the Thai Nikaya, where we shaved our eyebrows. I did so. When did I even stop? I shaved right up until I disrobed in 2018, and then I let them grew back, and I just never shaved them again. But you started growing them back even while you were at the monastery?
Yeah, about a year and a half ago, something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm not from the Thai tradition. But like I said, like Bhante said, my lineage that I was ordained in is technically by Thailand. So it started out in Sri Lanka, then it went to Thailand, and then it came back to Sri Lanka, essentially. So it's a Sri Lankan Thai lineage, right? And so this Sri Lankan Thai lineage also shaves their eyebrows, but the other lineages don't. And Bhante might know better than this, but what I trying to find out why we shave our eyebrows, because it's not in the Vinaya, right? It's not in the monks' rules anywhere. And what I was told, that the reason why Thai monks started shaving their eyebrows like 100, 200 years ago was because they were having a war with Burma. And they were, basically the monks were, the two sides were sending spy monks against each other. And it was to shave their eyebrows was so that you could tell who the spy was, right? So I don't know if that's real or not. I mean, I really don't. But like in investigating, and I'm like, okay, so it's not in the monks' rules, and it has to do with a war and spying. I'm not going to shave my eyebrows. Like there's no real good reason to do it. Like if there was a real good reason, then I would do it. But because of politics and war and things like that, and because of culture, I'm not going to do it. So that's why. So the majority of Theravada and monastics do not shave their eyebrows. It's a very specific Thai thing. Do you know? And is that story like what have you heard?
It's interesting you say that. I think at the moment, Thailand is actually has the most monks. So I think you could say that the majority of Theravada monks are actually shaving their eyebrows, just by numbers.
Well, I'm thinking there's got to be a heck of a lot of numbers of monks in Burma too, and they don't shave their eyebrows. I don't think.
It could be.
But no, I think you're probably right. Thailand probably has the most amount of monks. Yeah.
But I heard the exact same story.
All right.
So it was a decree by the Thai king, and really clever when you get down to it. They had some really clever kings in Thailand.
All right.
So shaving the head helped control lice in the colonial times in America and Britain. And that's why they would shave their head and then they wear these powdered wigs that were to protect them from lice. And often in the military, they shave heads to control lice because you're kind of packing people together. But not in the Buddhist side.
Yeah. So the shaved head thing is the same as the robes, right? It's a way to distinguish you from a regular person, right? At the time of the Buddha, there were the Brahmins, the regular people part of the caste system. And then there were the Samanas, the people who decided to check out of regular society, go into the woods and search for enlightenment, right? And so the Samanas, the kind of general, it wasn't like this for every wandering group, because some had long hair and they had even some had what's the dreadlocks? Yeah, dreadlocks, right? But this was part of that tradition that you shaved your head, right? So it was a very obvious difference. Like, oh, this is a shaven. So they'd call it a shaveling, right? And so some of the Brahmins, like they would say, you shaveling, like they would use it as like an insult to the person, to the Samanas, right? So that's where that kind of came from. And like the same thing with the robes. It's a way to distinguish that you are not a regular person living a regularly life. And it has its origins before the Buddha, right? It's part of that ancient culture of the Samanas at the time of the Buddha. Why is there a little Buddha in front of the big one on the altar? Do you know if there's a specific reason for that? So
I was once asked this question. I was helping tour a group of high school students through a Buddhist temple. And it's like all of this Buddhist paraphernalia and all this symbolism. And the first question they asked just caught me flat-footed. They're like, why are there so many Buddhas? And I'm like, what do you mean? It had never struck me as odd that there's more than one Buddha. Maybe if you go to a church, you'll only see like one cross with Jesus on it. But in a Buddhist temple, you can have as many Buddha statues as you want because they're not holy. They're not imbued with any sort of mystical power. We're not trying to use them as like as a stand-in for the Buddha at all. Like they're just here to remind us of the Buddha and his qualities, to remind us that awakening is possible in this life. So we are facing a big picture of the Buddha on the wall over there, him seated by the Naranjana River near Bodh Gaya, where he attained enlightenment. And so you go through a Buddhist temple, you're going to see Buddhist statues everywhere. So if the temple had been given more statues, this whole altar would be full of them.
Yeah, I mean, my initial thought is just because the people like lots of statues, but there are, from what I understand, the different statues, there is some kind of, like different statues have different meanings and they have, it's honestly something that as a convert Buddhist, I just don't know. I really don't. But I do have a suspicion based on some knowledge that there are differences in the Buddhas, the statues and the meanings and all that kind of stuff. But generally, like when I was at Bhavana, people would just come and they would just bring Buddha statues. And then Bhante Ji would say, just put it on the altar with the rest of the Buddha statues. Yeah. So, so basically that happened as well.
We were just at a Thai temple the other day and they had like easily 14 Buddha statues on one of the altars. And it was kind of cool.
Yeah. So the chat's getting away from us. I wanted to go back to Adriana's good Dhamma question. So I have a question on finding balance between reflecting and actually practicing. During daily life, I find myself often reflecting on what I learned in the Dhamma talks or suttas.
But I feel like sometimes I neglect practicing. So I'm wondering if there's a balance I need to find. Reflecting is practicing. Reflecting is a major part of the Buddhist practice. And in fact, in many suttas, he's not talking about the gradual training, what we're really familiar with, where you develop sense restraint and then mindfulness and then the jhanas to get samadhi, and then you apply it to seeing the three characteristics of all phenomena. The Buddha doesn't do that in every sutta. In some suttas, he's like, you should reflect. I am going to die someday. And that's like his training, because in that reflection, if you keep returning to it and allowing it to build up a sense of urgency, but it gives you leverage against the hindrances of the mind. It does the exact same thing as all of that really dedicated formal practice. So if reflections are what you're feeling called to do, then those are totally wholesome. And if it engages your mind. Now, if you're just like, Dhamma thinking, like just kind of like randomly, like letting your mind drift through some things that you had heard in a Dhamma talk, it might not be as effective as if you're like, okay, I should put that down for a minute and kind of concentrate my mind. But for the most part, that's exactly what you should be doing.
So I couldn't throw a number at you, and I'm going off the top of my head, so it's not 100% accurate, but the Buddha essentially describes a kind of like the step-by-step of how it works. So the first is like you hear a Dhamma talk, right? You hear the Dhamma, you listen to the Dhamma, you read the Dhamma, and then you contemplate the Dhamma, like you reflect on it, right? And then that gives you a desire to practice the Dhamma, right? So, reflecting on the Dhamma and thinking about it and stuff like that is actually part of the way the practice works, right? But eventually you do need to actually get down and do the practice itself, right? But the practice needs zeal, right? If you don't listen to Dhamma talks and read the Dhamma and, build up that zeal and contemplate and think about things, right? Then your desire to meditate is going to be less. Right? And this is why Buddha gives all kinds of contemplations, like the 5 subjects for contemplation, right? I am subject to old age, sickness, and death. Like, Sila Nusati, all of these different reflections, right? They're not meditation as in like Satipatthana or Anapanasati, but they are part of the way the mind works in doing the practice, right? Listening to Dhamma, hearing the Dhamma, right? That it gives you the fuel to do the practice, right? So this is all part of it. But you can also reach the point where you have to have Ajahn Chah tell you to put the dang books down, right? At some point you have to put it down and practice, right? So if you find that you are reflecting too much and you're kind of using it as a way of you check your intuition, your intentions, right? To see, am I kind of using this as a distraction? And if it is, then that's when you say, okay, no, I'm going to practice, right? So you have to check to see what your intention is if you're kind of being lazy. Or maybe you really do need lots of Dhamma to just maybe you're just in a slump and you're like, okay, I don't want to practice. I just want to listen to another Dhamma talk. Maybe that happens, right? Sometimes it's just like all you can do is listen to Dhamma. You have to get through a slump, right? Then that's fine. But you don't want to make it, but that's only part of the whole practice. So you got to keep that in mind as you go through.
Yeah, and it's worth saying that in the West, there's a whole lot of emphasis put on samadhi and on the vipassana teachings, but a stream enterer, it does not require meditation. And the vast majority of people who have had some insight into the Dhamma and who practice the Dhamma simply visit the temple or support the Sangha or listen to Dhamma talks. And so it's not to assume that those people are not practicing the Dhamma. In fact, they are practicing it, but they are practicing it on the long haul. So when you find yourself reflecting, there's advice that Longpo Liam, the monk who took over Ajahn Chah's monastery when Ajahn Chah had a stroke, Longpo Liam was once asked, what kind of meditation object is the best to use? And Longpo Liam is really known for his equanimity. And he said, well, any meditation object that leads to nibbida, that leads to disenchantment with the world, that is the right meditation object. So you can also just honestly reflect on your reflections. Which one of those are bringing up this sense of dispassion and sort of letting go of the world? Which of those are creating in you a sense that, you really want to move forward with your practice and start developing, the higher teachings? Then that would be the one to develop. And it should be quite natural then that you've got the energy to do it.
Kaleem Tech has a very good question, something that I struggled with myself. As if you were here last week, we talked about our practices. Often after a hard day's work, the mind craves distraction, TV, internet, and sensual indulgences into food to generate pleasant feelings. How to practice sense restraint successfully. One of the most important things to understand is what you've already, just by the question, you have noticed that at the end of the day, your mind is kind of your mind is in a mode where it just wants to kind of veg out, right? It doesn't want to practice anything hard. It doesn't want to have to do calculus or whatever. It maybe doesn't even have the energy to do that, right? So this is actually something that is pretty common. Like I said last week, I never ended up having an evening practice because of this, because I would often work, late. Sometimes I get home 9, 10 o'clock, and my practice just wasn't there. Trying to get my mind to do that was very, very hard because of this tiredness and because of this, my mind had been working the whole day. And it just wanted to veg. It just wanted to have a nice, chill, kind of, like you say, pleasant experience before having to go to bed and waking up and doing it all over again, right? So for me personally, in understanding this problem, the way I figured it out how to fix it was to go to bed earlier, wake up earlier, and have the morning to my Dhamma practice, right? So you have to kind of try to practice and try to investigate and see what works for you, right? Maybe what might be best is when you get home from work, maybe do you have a roommate or a kalyanamita or somebody that you can kind of do a little bit of practice with, even if it's online, like the kind of like an encouragement of because you can be very tired, right? But if you have good teammates, right, then that can give you the energy to keep going, right? So some kind of finding some way, even getting some help from others of saying, okay, I want to meditate. Let's do something together. Let's meditate. Let's listen to Dhamma. Let's do something, right? So this is not an easy situation because you have a lot of things stacked against you at the end of the day, right? I mean, granted, if you didn't work all day, maybe you don't. Maybe you're rested or whatever. But for the average person, the end of the day is a tough time, especially if you have to come home, if you have kids, you have to make dinner, you have to do all kinds of things. It's a really hard time. But if you can manage to have that kind of end of the evening meditation, it can help you go to sleep easier too. The problem is also you could fall asleep while you're doing the meditation. But that's basically what I have to say. Maybe Bhante has some better words to say there.
That's great. I love that sentiment of setting the intention, like I'm going to go to bed a little earlier so I can wake up. And it's not hard. You don't have the same aspiration to veg out first thing in the morning. So it's a lot easier. But it just occurred to me while you were talking that this is the function a lot of people find their weekly meditation group serves. Because what are the conditions that cause you to veg out? Going home and not having responsibilities is a condition for vegging out. But if after work you go to your 6:30 or 7 o'clock meditation group and you meditate with your Kalyana Mitta for an hour, then you get back and it's, things are wrapping up. You have dinner or you just kind of tidy up your stuff and then you go to sleep. It's actually not that hard. So this might be something that you can only set up, once or twice a week. Again, if you're lucky, if you don't have, kids or other responsibilities, but you can schedule something in where you don't go back into those circumstances. And, for just one day, you kind of get that experience. And yeah, you'll start to get a taste for it. You're like, wow, that day was a lot more relaxed. And I woke up the next day a lot more refreshed, a lot more energy and mindfulness. I should do that more often. So Gleam Tech is Shab. Hello, Shab.
Oh, we had a jump here. All right. And yeah, Shab has a young child that is married, so he has a lot on his plate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't be hard on yourself.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure if your wife was a Buddhist or not. I don't think so. So it would be hard. But if your wife were, it could be like, if Rupa was on here, Rupa and Nandakumar, her husband, and the girls, they all meditate together, right? So that's like a good, that could be a nice evening thing, like pre-dinner or something like that. Let's have a little meditation. Getting the family involved is good if you can do it. Not everybody can.
Or getting them to support you. Yeah, if you get a once a week meditation group, and they're like, "Yeah, I got it." You go to your meditation group. I've heard more than one spouse say that they love it when their significant other goes on a meditation retreat.
They get a break. They get their own little retreat from the person, right?
And the spouse comes back so nice and relaxed and affectionate. You're like, I've got to send you off on retreat more often.
Mm-hmm. So Robert says one of the 4 foundations of mindfulness is contemplation of principles. It's the last one, Dhammanupassana. And I wouldn't say yes and no. It is a contemplation of, like, say, the 6 senses, the 4 noble truths, but it's not just kind of a mental pondering. Like, it's a real investigation into the 6 senses. Like, the Buddha calls the 6 senses the all, right? It's a real investigation into the 5 hindrances, the 5 aggregates, the 7 factors of awakening, right? Mindfulness and energy and investigation. It's it's not just a kind of mental contemplation. It's an investigation into those things. Well, technically, all of the contemplations are really an investigation, but especially when the last Satipatthana, it's not supposed to just be that you're contemplating it. It is like you are using that framework that the Buddha has given us as a way to develop insight into that part of our experience.
Yeah, that's exactly how I've thought about the fourth satipatthana. It's important to link it to the idea of sati. And sati is also like remembering. So it's like you're remembering to see things in the framework of the five aggregates, remembering to see things in the framework of the Four Noble Truths. And in that way, it's not necessarily that you're contemplating, except that you're trying to see everything through that lens. You're trying to keep the Four Noble Truths in mind while you're looking out at the world.
Adine, this is a place after my own heart. When I lived in San Francisco, I went to the super minimalist vihara. They only had a big Bodhi leaf and a pair of stylized Buddha footprints. No Buddha statues at all. When I have my own place, I decide. I was originally going to say no Buddha statues at all, but then I've softened up a little bit. But Buddha statues are allowed outside for my own place, but the centerpiece is going to be an empty chair with the Dhammacakka, the eightfold wheel up above it, and the Buddha's footprints at the feet of the chair. I think that's like that, because all of those are the ancient pre-Buddha statue ways of remembering the Buddha, right? And I love those. I really do. I'll be honest with you. I am one of those people that have never gotten anything out of a Buddha statue. And I know that's weird. I know a lot of people get a lot of good things out of the Buddha statues, but I've never had. But those old things, those old things like that empty chair, like the footprints, the Buddha was here. And the Buddha's not this statue. The Buddha was a person who was here 2,600 years ago. He walked the earth, right? He gave us the teachings. And now he's gone, right? So the empty chair, the Buddha is not here anymore. Impermanence. I love it. But yes, so that's interesting. There are places that are like this, but they're very, very rare. The Buddha statue is just so ubiquitous. I don't know.
We were just talking about this the other day, and it's that I'm the total opposite. I get to a place like that, and I'm like, why would you cut out something like the Buddha statue? It's the most wonderful, kind of bright, happy, harmless thing. And it's like, but to each their own taste. I have noticed that a lot more of the monasteries and temples and the centers that are started by Westerners or people with very modern trains of thought, they tend to remove those old traditional things. But I even like going to like a Catholic church and seeing like all the paraphernalia and all the stained glass windows and stuff. Yeah, but to each their own.
Yeah, well, like I said, and originally I was like, no Buddha statues at all. But this Buddha statues have a place. They just won't be in the center.
Yeah, actually, some monasteries now, they're creating a specific room for that. And because monastery, you get gifted these statues, like lots of them. And in like a Thai temple, they'll just put them all on the altar. But if you're going for that sort of like really minimalist, simple, pristine, clean, spacious kind of shrine room, then you just take all those statues and put them down and create this kind of super good vibe room down in the basement where all the statues are stacked up, and that's cool too.
I will have to say though that this is basically my favorite Buddha statue I've ever seen. And one of the main reasons is because the Buddha literally has a huge smile. Most of the Buddha statues do not. So this is a cool Buddha statue. I have to admit, I do like it. But most Buddha statues, not so much. But yeah, I was told, I remember telling this to Bhante Siddhasa when I was first living with him at Bhavana. This will go back 6-7 years ago now. And he says, yeah, some monks tried that in Sri Lanka and they never got supported. It never worked out well. So it is not something necessarily only Western, but it's Most people grew up with the Buddha statues and they like the Buddha statues. So that's the way it goes. Adine says, I'm okay with meditating in the morning, but it's really hard to do in the evening. I'm just all wound up and can't calm down. Maybe one has to go forth to really practice. No, not necessarily. Monks have to do work too and things like that. Obviously, it's not as much as a layperson, and depending on where you are. But when I was at Bhavana, it felt like a full-time job to me.
Yeah,
and it often was many. It wasn't just hour or 2 hours a day. It was way more than that. But that's the way it goes.
Yeah, there is some power though with everybody being on the same schedule. It's like when everybody's doing the evening meditation, everybody is structuring their day so that they'll still have the energy to do evening meditation. And when a whole group of people are structuring are pacing themselves, then you do too. You've got the support to kind of be more gradual in your day and have something left.
John says something very good. After a full Monday of work, I look forward to Dhammapalooza. All right.
That's your meditation group.
Oh, another jump. Robert says, I can wake up early in the morning, but I end up feeling drowsy about an hour and a half after I wake up and feel cruddy the rest of the day. As long as you're getting enough sleep, that shouldn't be an issue. But I will say the first thing I did when I woke up in the morning was I went to the gym. Like the very, very first thing I did was exercise. Right. And that set a tone for my day and gave me a lot of energy for the rest of the day. So if the first thing you do is wake up and then you just like, okay, I'm going to wake up. Okay, I'm going to sit and meditate. No,
it doesn't go well.
Get some exercise, maybe do some activity, get a little energy going, and then sit. Maybe listen to a Dhamma talk.
Well, but careful turning on the computer. Careful picking up the phone. That can be a real trap.
True. Yeah, very true.
If you could have it queued up.
Yeah, there's there are all kinds of like self-help people and coaches to talk about queuing things up the night before so that you don't have to think about it the next day. So that works. Yeah.
I remember when I was wandering, people were it was right at the beginning of this thing where Facebook was becoming just this den of heated arguments, political arguments. And I was like having to counsel people. It's like when you wake up first thing in the morning, do not open Facebook. Meditate first. Get some calm, some metta, some equanimity in the mind before you open that thing. Because if you're just opening your eyes and you're going straight to some sort of like political charged argumentative vitriol, your day is just going to be so much harder.
Okay, so Robert and Nadine, they're just talking about the footprints and the statues and the jump. There's a jump. All right. Yeah, the Jesus fish. That actually, growing up Catholic, I really enjoy. Again, this is a temperament of mine, right? My temperament when I was a Catholic was actually I severely disliked the Catholic Church, and I loved the original Church Fathers and the way Christianity was in the old days. This is just whatever religion it is. That's just how I roll. That's because it seems like things the less time has so basically the way I always view it is like the original person does something really good, and then over time humans screw it up. Right? So for me, like the earliest stuff always seems to be the better stuff, in my opinion. for my own practice. I don't talk about, but that's kind of how I roll. It's the same thing with me. Like I always think about like even like in the early church fathers, like there were women who were, priests and deacons like this before, so it was very different back then. Kind of not too dissimilar to Buddhism as well. How things have kind of come down compared to how it originally was. But yeah, that's, you could say that's my bias, my temperament, whatever. That's how I roll.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, back in the Buddhist day, each group of monastics would leave a seat open for the Buddha because he was alive and he was wandering around. There was a chance that if you had a seat for him, that he would show up, and then he would just go and sit down at the head of the group. Most of the time, it was just wishful thinking, but sometimes it actually happened. So that was technically one of the very first symbols, was just to have an open seat, like in expectation of like a remembering the teacher. And when I started at Abhayagiri monastery, for quite a while, there was this kind of dual abbot, this partnership going on. And so when one abbot would leave, the other one would have their seat be central. But then shortly after I ordained, one of the abbots, Ajahn Amaro, went to be the abbot of a monastery in England. When that happened, there was just one abbot and one senior teacher who was running the community. And when he would go away on a teaching trip or visiting Thailand, I really actually liked the idea of leaving his seat there and open, rather than sort of like taking it away and everybody moving up and just shifting the roles, but like leaving that seat and remembering, oh, there's our teacher's still out there, and he could show up and fill that seat at any time. And it's sort of what the Buddha statue is supposed to help us do, to remember there's a place for the teacher at the head of the room.
Yeah, I had the idea of like having because when I was at Bhavan, I was thinking about like what we might do like after Bhante Ji died and things, like thinking about like years ahead. And I thought like it would be neat to have like this central, the way it originally was, like how monks are supposed to be on a higher thing. That's not how it originally was. It was when you teach the Dhamma, you're supposed to be on a higher days, right? So I thought it would be neat to have this kind of empty chair that remained empty until the person, whoever was teaching the Dhamma, would go into that chair, and then they would teach the Dhamma, and then they would go off. I kind of like that idea. I think that's something that, but yeah, that is a neat thing to kind of have that empty chair, like the what it signifies. So Robert says, I've been waking up early to do your the 8 a.m. morning monastery experience. Very good. I found it helpful as a solitary practitioner. Yeah, it's really neat. Like, I didn't even plan this, but like the people in the morning, they literally all come and they say hello to each other on the chat. They're like, hi, good morning, Bhante, good morning, such. And then they say good morning to each other. I was like, wow, I couldn't like force this or plan this to happen if I wanted to. This is pretty neat that they kind of created almost their own little community of, people who came on 8 a.m. to do the chanting and the stuff. So yeah, I'm glad it's of benefit to you. For a while, I was doing sun salutations first thing. Maybe I should start that again. Yeah, get some yoga in, get some activity. That's a good thing. Adriana says to Bhante, Facebook when I first wake up is not a good idea.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, we have come to the end of the chat. So why don't we do a little sutta for a little bit, and then we'll do our guided meditation. This is a very, very long sutta. We're not going to get through it today, but we can go through it here and there. Hello, Jen. Welcome. And Gray. Hey, Gray. John is also liking the morning sessions. Yeah, John is one of that crew, always there. So if you'd like to follow us along. So this sutta is a very famous sutta. It's in the Digha Nikaya, which is a long one. So we're not going to get through this. But we're going to go through and maybe, we'll finish it up next week. This sutta is considered to be the premier sutta of the Buddha's teachings on how lay people should act, how lay people should practice, right? So there's lots of good advice in here, like how to know who is a good friend, right? And how to live moderately in your finances, right? Like what not to do, like gambling and carousing and drinking, right? So like all of these kind of interesting things are in this sutta, right? Also in this sutta, how a parent should act towards a child, how a child should act towards a parent, how a husband should act towards a wife, how a wife should act towards a husband, right? All of these kind of really interesting things. Yeah, Adriana says that James calls this the lay vinaya. Yeah, exactly, the lay vinaya, right? So this is a very interesting sutta. It's not like deep, right? We're not worried about like, not self and all kinds of things like that. So there's not a lot of explaining that needs to be done, right? Mostly it's just reading and listening and saying, hey, that's pretty cool. Yeah, the Buddha, right? Okay, so let's read through here. Advice to Sigolovada. So have I heard, or so I have heard. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Rajagaha. I probably should zoom this up just a little bit so I can see better. There we go. In the bamboo grove at the squirrel's feeding ground. Now at that time, the householder's son, Sigolovada, rose early and left Rajagaha. With his clothes and hair all wet, he raised his joined palms and to revere the quarters. East, south, west, north, below, and above. Then the Buddha robed up in the morning, taking his bowl and robe, entered Rajagaha for alms. He saw Sigolovada revering in the quarters and said to him, householder's son, why are you revering the quarters in this way? Sir, on his deathbed, my father said to me, my dear, please revere the quarters. Honoring, respecting, and venerating my father's words, I rose early and left Rajagaha. See, Robert, maybe this is something for you to do. You rise early, take a dip in the stream, and revere the quarters. You'll be wide awake in the morning. So, honoring, respecting, and venerating my father's words, I rose early and left Rajagaha, and with my clothes and hair all wet, raised my joined palms to revere the quarters, east, southwest, north, below, and above. So the 6 quarters. Just checking the chat, see if I missed anything. Householder's son, that's not how the 6 quarters should be revered in the training of the noble ones. But sir, how should the 6 quarters be revered in the training of the noble ones? Sir, please teach me this. Well then, householder's son, listen and pay close attention. I will speak. Yes, sir, replied Sigolovada. The Buddha said this. Householder's son, a noble disciple gives up the 4 corrupt deeds, does not do bad deeds on 4 grounds, and avoids 6 drains on wealth. When they've left these 14 bad things behind, they have the 6 quarters covered. They're practicing to win in both worlds, in this world and the heavenly world, right? And they succeed in this world and the next. When their body breaks up after death, they're reborn in a good place, a heavenly realm. So, Chattaro Kamma Kilesa, the 4 corrupt deeds. What 4 corrupt deeds have they given up? Killing living creatures, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying. 4 out of the 5 precepts. We'll hear about the 5th one later. These are corrupt deeds, right? These are the 4 corrupt deeds they're giving up. That is what the Buddha said. Then the Holy One, the teacher, went on to say, killing, stealing, telling lies, and committing adultery, astute people don't praise these things. Huh. That's interesting. That's just a Pali aside. Never mind. Okay, so the 4 grounds. On what 4 grounds do they not do bad deeds? 1 does bad deeds prejudiced by favorism, hostility, stupidity, and cowardice. When a noble disciple is not prejudiced by favoritism, hostility, stupidity, and cowardice, they don't do bad deeds on these 4 grounds. This is what the Buddha said.
Yeah, that's chanda, dosa, which is the root of hatred, moha, which is the root of delusion,
Chanda.
and bhaya, which is the root of fear.
I'm looking for favoritism.
Chanda katin.
Okay, because I've heard these 4, but I've never seen this translation. This is the first time I'm reading this in Bhante Sujato's translation. So, first time I'm seeing these.
It actually shows up in the Vinaya, this particular framework.
Yeah.
It's you're not supposed to complain about a community official in the Sangha unless they're making decisions based on favoritism or ill will or delusion or fear. Then you're actually supposed to criticize them and bring that up.
Yeah. So check before you do an action, check to see if these 4 are behind, right? And part of that intention. When the noble disciple is not prejudiced by favoritism, hostility, stupidity, and cowardice, they don't do bad deeds on these 4 grounds. That is what the Buddha said. Then the Holy One, the teacher, went on to say, if you act against the teaching out of favoritism, hostility, cowardice, or stupidity, your fame shrinks like the moon in the waning fortnight. If you don't act against the teachings out of favoritism, hostility, cowardice, and stupidity, your fame swells like the moon in the waxing fortnight. So, checking the chat. All right, no comments. Now, Buddha talks about financial planning. 6 drains on wealth. What 6 drains on wealth do they avoid? Habitually engaging in the following things is a drain on wealth. Drinking alcohol, roaming the streets at night, frequenting festivals, except for Dhammapalooza. That's why gambling, bad friends, and laziness, right? Check yourself before you wreck yourself, Robert says. Yeah, so this is all stuff your parents told you, right? Good, wise people say, habitually engage. So habitually. So it's not necessarily that you go, you go to a festival here and there, right? It's frequently. So it's like, this is what you're doing, right? You're going out, you're drinking, you're roaming the streets up to no good, frequenting festivals, gambling, being around foolish people, laziness, right? Those drain your wealth. Now, 6 drawbacks to drinking. There are these 6 drawbacks to habitually drinking alcohol. I'm just checking to see the Pali so it'll be in carelessness. Not really. The habitually is added by Bhante Sujato, and I get what he means here because the Buddha is talking about essentially like something that you do as a habit, although it's technically not there.
Yeah, the yoga, so it's a form of yoga, and yoga is often used when you're doing something as like a way, a habit or a way of life or a habitual practice.
Oh, there you go. All right, yoga, yeah.
It's anu yoga, so to make something a habit.
Oh, very good, Bhante. Good catch. Immediate loss of wealth. So habitually drinking alcohol, these are the drawbacks. Immediate loss of wealth, promotion of quarrels, susceptibility to illness, disrepute, indecent exposure, and weakened wisdom is the sixth. Oh, First Pierre, that's a name I'm not familiar with. Welcome.
You're doing walking meditation at 2 a.m. That's awesome.
No, that's not that's not counted as roaming the streets. So that's good. These are the six drawbacks to habitually drinking alcohol.
But that's actually it's worth saying, like, this is something you figure out when you start committing to the 5 precepts, is like only bad stuff is happening after hours out on the streets.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why the monks don't have dinner, is because they were going for alms at night and people were mistaking them for robbers, or they were being robbed. Yeah. That's one of the reasons. Even though they really didn't like it. It's so funny when I read that rule the first time. One monk says, "But the evening meal is the best meal of the day." Boy. All right. The 6 drawbacks to roaming the streets at night. There are these 6 drawbacks to roaming the streets at night. Yourself, your partners, and children, and your property are all left unguarded. Okay? So your house is left unguarded. You are suspected of bad deeds, right? Hey, what are you doing out in the middle of the night in the darkness, right? Untrue rumors spread about you. You're at the forefront of many things that entail suffering. These are the 6 drawbacks to roaming the streets at night. Kevin says, but beer tastes good after a round of golf on a very hot day. I've hated the taste of beer my whole life, so I can't respond. But yeah, things taste good. Yeah. I don't know. For me, I guess I could say after a round of golf on a hot day, some Gatorade tastes pretty good.
Yeah, and the Asura Mayaraya Majja Pamadatana, it's intoxicants which are the basis for heedlessness. So one could make a reasonable case that a single beer in the afternoon on a hot day is only barely qualifying as, alcoholic, taking alcohol. There are drinks like kombucha or stuff that have like trace amounts of alcohol. There are medicines that have trace amounts of alcohol. But it's just like, who only has one? It's like, if you've got that, then great. But the most people are going to find that letting one in brings in 2, brings in 3, brings in a 6-pack, brings in your whole afternoon is gone.
Yeah. Well, and also, who was it? Was it Rob or somebody asking about how to practice sense restraint? This is giving up the 5th precept in a way is like a test, right? Are you strong enough in your conviction to start letting go, to say, I don't really need alcohol, right? You can say, oh, well, studies say a glass of wine a day could be healthy. But I've read those studies. I mean, you can just not have the wine and be healthy too, right? And so it's kind of like a thing of, well, can you actually let it go? Can you say, do I really need this? So it can be kind of like a test, something to strive for as well. So the 6 drawbacks to festivals, to frequenting festivals. You're always thinking, where's the dancing? Where's the singing? Where's the music? Where's the stories? Where's the applause? Where's the kettle drums? These are the 6 drawbacks to frequenting festivals.
Whoa.
Kevin says it's a social issue, being around friends that drink. True, but if you are consistent and you're firm and they see that you are doing something seriously and specifically for a good reason, they will not bother you anymore. It might take a while, but they won't. And then you might just, because what happened to me was I became the designated driver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they found a use for me.
Yeah, it's very easy to try to be that reasonable person who's like, I'm not going to give up something just as adhering to rules and being nitpicking about all these little things. I'm going to be reasonable and drink in moderation. And then, weigh that up against somebody who's like, I honestly don't need this. And it leads to bad things in my life and in the life of others. And I'm willing to give it up. It's like, who do we have more respect for? And this is how it goes. If you genuinely believe in something, you genuinely are willing to commit something, that is a very respectable quality. It almost doesn't matter what it is you're committing to. So you say, and people will, at first they'll try to test you. They'll try to push you. And in some ways you'll be able to develop compassion, because that's just a sign of their own insecurity. It's a sign that they're not ready to give it up, or they're not ready to consider what their life would be like if it didn't have that kind of social support of drinking together. But if you normalize it and you develop the confidence in it, then everybody's going to be like, well, this is a really good thing. You have more money, your wits aren't dulled, you're more responsible. It's just good all around.
Yeah. And it is also the case that the deeper you get into the practice, the more naturally you kind of shed friends that are not acting that very skillful, and you yearn to find friends that are. It's just part of the practice.
It's actually in the sutta, isn't it?
I think
that
so.
Friendship,
yeah. And Adine says, to be honest, finding friends inclined towards Dhamma is hard here. My friends are not spiritually inclined. They're not evil, but they're also not Dhamma oriented. Having a Kalyana Mitta means being around people who act skillful, who do good. Not necessarily that they're Buddhists, right? But that they are good people that are trying to make good choices and are trying to better themselves and do good. That's fine. Yeah. Robert says he's the son of an alcoholic, so he's always had that alcohol. Yeah. Drank in college. There's a time and a place for everything, and it's called college. I drank plenty in college, and then after that, I was kind of like, it's not that. I pretty much did it all in college. When I became a Buddhist, not drinking alcohol again was not hard for me. So it was definitely not something I had to give up. It really wasn't. But for some people it is. It's more. It's bigger. So. Fars Pierre says every cop in town knows me. The untrue rumors thing is for sure true. Uh-oh. Oh, because you're out meditating at 2:00 in the morning? Yeah.
Yeah, I've experienced that too. As a wandering monk, I'd sometimes get lost, and I'd be walking down a particular road, and people would call the cops. It was like, who would walk down this road unless they lived here? It's just not normal. It's not natural. It's people can be suspicious. To be lost is not that common. To be casing people's houses to break into them just because you're wandering down the road, that's maybe a bit extreme. But often when people are out late at night, there's something with the 5 precepts usually going on. But maybe what the cops are realizing is that you're just this cool guy who doesn't need to sleep. Your reputation, to the degree that you're not actually breaking the precepts, is going to start to increase in the positive. And you'll be like, wow, this guy's actually, we should get him on the neighborhood watch.
Yeah. And Adriana's saying, you're always thinking, Where's the salsa? Where's the samba? Where's the singing? 2,600 years later, so still true. Adriana is the Latin blood is coming out with the singing and the dancing. I get it. They like to do it. Adriana's having some fun. All right. Okay. So let's read a little bit more. 6 drawbacks to gambling. There are these 6 drawbacks to habitually gambling. Victory breeds enmity. So meaning you gamble, maybe you're doing dice or you're doing cards and you win. The other people don't like that they lost their money, right? The loser mourns their money. There is immediate loss of wealth. A gambler's word carries no weight in public assembly. Right? I just give me a little more. I'm going to win the next one, right? Friends and colleagues treat them with contempt. And no one wants to marry a gambler, for they think this individual is a gambler. They're not able to support a partner. These are the 6 drawbacks to habitually gambling.
Those are some heavy drawbacks, by the way.
All right. So 6 drawbacks to bad friends. There are 6 drawbacks of bad friends. You become friends and companions with those who are scoundrels, drunkards, addicts, frauds, swindlers, and thugs. These are the 6 drawbacks of bad friends. Right? 6 drawbacks of laziness. Now, let's see if we can see ourselves in this, right? There are these 6 drawbacks of habitual laziness. You don't get your work done because you think, it's too cold, it's too hot, it's too late, it's too early, I'm too hungry, I'm too full. I've seen myself, every single one of those, I've seen myself in that at one point or another, right? There's always an excuse. The mind is always able to come up with an excuse. By dwelling on so many excuses for not working, you don't make any more money, and the money you already make runs out. These are the 6 drawbacks of habitual laziness. This is what the Buddha said. Then the Holy One, the teacher, went on to say, very important. Listen to this. Very important. Some are just drinking buddies. Some call you their dear, dear friend. But a true friend is one who stands by you in need. Right? What is it in our culture? What does it say? You find out who your true friends are when you have to move. Who's going to help you move all your stuff, right? Or in my experience, you find out who your true friends are when you get cancer or you have like some kind of strong, severe issue that happens in your life where you actually need supportive people. You find out who your true friends are, right? So this is the Buddha saying, a true friend is one who stands by you in need. When you are in need, when the chips are down, right? That's who you know who your true friends are. Sleeping late, adultery, making enemies, harmfulness, bad friends, and avarice. These 6 grounds ruin a person. With bad friends, bad companions, bad behavior, and alms resort, a man falls to ruin in both this world and the next. Dice, women, drink, song, and dance, sleeping by day and roaming by night, bad friends and avarice. These 6 grounds ruin a person. They play dice and drink liquor and consort with women loved by others, associating with the worse, not the better. They diminish like the waning moon, a drunkard, a broke, a destitute, thirsty, drinking in the bar, drowning in debt, will quickly lose their way. When you're in the habit of sleeping late, seeing night as time to rise, and always getting drunk, you can't sleep up the household. You can't keep up the household life. Too cold, too hot, too late, they say. When the young neglect their work like this, riches pass them by. But one who considers hot and cold as nothing more than blades of grass, he does his manly duty, and happiness never fails. All right, that's some good stuff, right? A friend in need is a friend indeed. Yes. Now, the next section, fake friends. Number 11, householder's son. You should recognize these 4 enemies disguised as friends: the taker, the talker, the flatterer, and the spender. You can recognize a fake friend who's all take on. You can recognize a fake friend who's all take on 4 grounds. Your possessions end up theirs. Giving little, they expect a lot. They do their duty out of fear. They associate for their own advantage. Right? So they're just taking from you. They're not giving. There's no give and take. There's no equal friendship, right? And this could be the same thing for relationships too, for romantic relationships. A very important thing to see. You can recognize a fake friend who's all take on these 4 grounds. You can recognize a fake friend who's all talk on 4 grounds. They're hospitable in the past. They're hospitable in the future. They're full of meaningless pleasantries. When something needs doing in the present, they point to their own misfortune. Isn't that great? They're really hospitable to you in the past and the future, but in the present, not so much. There you go. You can recognize a fake friend who's all talk on these 4 grounds. You can recognize a fake friend who's a flatterer on 4 grounds.
Maybe if you click one of them.
No, this is a bug that's fairly common. And that you can like refresh, but then I'd have to find it again. I can read it. They support you equally in doing bad and doing good. They praise you to your face and put you down behind your back. So they're not really there for your good. They're not encouraging the best part of you to come out. They're praising you whether you're bad or good, right? They praise you to your face and they throw some verbal daggers at you in your back. You can recognize a fake friend who's a flatterer on these 4 grounds. You can recognize a fake friend who's a spender on 4 grounds. They accompany you when drinking, roaming the streets at night, frequenting festivals, and gambling. So basically, like, when it comes time to get some advantage for you to spend money on them, they're there, right? This is one of the problems that people who are rich have problems with, right? Because imagine living not knowing if the person who says they're your friend is there for your money or there for you. That's kind of a crappy thing, huh? That's not easy. But that's a person who's a spender. They'll spend everything you got, but nothing of their own. That is what the Buddha said. Then the Holy One, the teacher, went on to say, one friend is all take, another is all talk, one's just a flatterer, and one's a friend who spends. An astute person understands these 4 enemies for what they are and keeps them at a distance, as they would shun a risky road. Oh, I'm not going to repeat that one. That's the mobster's version of a good friend. What?
It's over my head. Yeah.
Oh, you've not seen this one?
No. I don't get it.
Yeah. Think of what mobsters do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what that means. Okay. So let's do one more section and then we'll do our guided meditation. So let's do good-hearted friends. Householder's son, you should recognize these 4 good-hearted friends. the helper, the friend in good times and bad, the counselor, and the one who's compassionate. You can recognize a good-hearted friend who's a helper on 4 grounds. They guard you when you're negligent, meaning when you're stupid, they still protect you. They still take care of you. They're still looking out for you. They guard your property when you're negligent. They keep you safe in times of danger. When something needs doing, they supply you with twice the money you need. You can recognize a good-hearted friend who's a helper on these 4 grounds. You can recognize a good-hearted friend who's the same in good times and bad on these 4 grounds. They tell you secrets. They keep your secrets. They don't abandon you in times of trouble. They'd even give their life for you. You can recognize a good-hearted friend who's the same in good times and bad on these 4 grounds. You can recognize a good-hearted friend who's a counselor on 4 grounds. They keep you from doing bad. They support you in doing good. They teach you what you do not know. They explain the path to heaven. You can recognize a good-hearted friend who's a counselor on these 4 grounds. You can recognize a good-hearted friend who's compassionate on these 4 grounds. They don't delight in your misfortune. They delight in your good fortune. They keep others from criticizing you. They encourage and praise you. You can recognize a good-hearted friend who's compassionate on these 4 grounds. This is what the Buddha said, right? So this is very important. One of the things that I was told early in life, my grandfather would tell my father told me, he's like, if you have 1 or 2 true, actual good friends in life, consider yourself lucky, right? So this is actually a rare person, right, that is like this, right? Most people are not like this, right? This is why the Buddha says, right, don't suffer companionship with fools. Better to be alone. But if you find somebody who's good, then hold on to them. Do whatever you can, right? Don't be separated from them. Obviously, don't be stupid and then you drive them away because they think you're nuts, right? Mm-hmm. But this is what Buddha is saying. Like, it's very rare to find a person like this, right? Don't do something stupid that would jeopardize your relationship with this person, right? Because they are there, they have your best benefit in mind, and you should have their best benefit in mind. And with that, the 2 of you can only grow. Yeah. No.
Yeah, this is great.
So then the Holy One, the teacher, went on to say, a friend who's a helper, one the same in both pleasure and pain, a friend who's of good counsel and of compassion. An astute person understands these 4 friends for what they are and carefully looks after them, like a mother a child at her breast, right? Again, where is this from? Where does this sound familiar? With your metta, right? Right? Hold on to your metta, the mind of metta. Don't let it go. Hold on to good friends, like a child that protects like a mother who protects their child, right? Same thing. The astute and the virtuous shine like a burning flame. They pick up riches as bees, roaming around picking up pollen, and their riches proceed to grow. Like an anthill piling up and gathering wealth like this, a householder does enough for their family, and they'll hold on to friends. By dividing their wealth into 4, one portion is to another Buddha as financial planner. Divide their wealth into 4. One portion is to enjoy, 2 parts to invest in work, and a 4th should be kept, right? For savings, for times of trouble. All right, I think that's where we're going to end. We are more than halfway through this sutta, but we're not going to finish it out. We can do that another time. But this is, like I said, this is a very good, light-hearted sutta with lots of really good advice, isn't it? Right? I mean, it's chock full with Buddha, the advice. Career counselor, financial counselor, friend counselor, life counselor, right? Lots of good stuff in there. Lots of good stuff.
So you see, it's not all necessarily satipatthana, 3 characteristics, not all like follow the breath, follow the breath, follow the breath. There's a lot to the Buddhist teaching that's simple, practical, wholesome advice about orienting yourself towards a good life, because though that is the foundation which leads to all of the higher dhammas. So sometimes you have to do a lot of work to get a sturdy foundation before you can practice all the time consistently.
Yeah. And it's not easy to what would you call eschew I'm trying to think of the word, not apprentices. I'm trying to think of people who are not friends, but they're acquaintances. Yeah. Thank you. So it's not easy to eschew lots of acquaintances, like people we want to be liked by a lot of people, and we want lots of acquaintances, but really only maybe 1 or 2 of them are really going to match the qualifications that the Buddhist says this is what you should be looking for, right? So is it worth it to be around lots of people who are kind of fake and who are not going to be there to help you when you need it? Or is it better to spend your energy looking for and being around good people, right? Good kalyanamitas. That's important. All right, friends. So I think we have a half hour left. We can do a guided meditation. Now, this is the final session that Bhante will be on Dhammapalooza. So what I'd like to do is give you the option to do this guided meditation if you want. If not, I'll do it like I always do. But since this is your last one until whenever, if you want to do it.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. It's been a while since you gave a guided meditation for the Dhammapalooza people. So
yes, actually, I don't know. Did I?
You did. Yeah, you did.
Yeah,
like in January. Yeah. Kevin, yes. I responded to that, and then something went wrong and it didn't send. And then I have to respond to that again. I got your message about that. So I will respond to that for you later on. Where's Bhante going?
That's funny.
Bhante's not going anywhere. This Bhante's going.
So Dhammapalooza is moving.
Yes, Dhammapalooza is moving. Yeah. So Dhammapalooza is something that I started a year ago for my channel. And because I've had the last 2 months, Bhante has lived with me. Bhante has been part of Dhammapalooza, right? But other than that, Bhante is not part of Dhammapalooza. So from here on in, it'll just be me. It'll go back to being normal. So wherever I'm in a place, if I can rope people into doing things with me, they'll, that's great. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, monastics often do their own thing, and they don't really get too involved in other monastic stuff. So it's good so I'm actually very grateful that Bhante did, take 2 hours every Monday evening, to be a part of this.
It's been fantastic. Yeah. And it's been a real joy to be part of it. And it's this opportunity we have. So if you're not doing anything else on a Monday night, hey, sense restraint is in the bag.
Yeah.
2 hours of Dhammapalooza, all good stuff.
Yeah. And Bhante has his own sessions as well. And at the end of this, we'll go over that so that you can keep in contact with all of us.
But nevertheless, I'm probably not going to put anything on Monday night so that you'll still see me popping in. I'll just be where you are, those little names ticking on the side.
Yeah. All right. So let's Adriana always goes, and I go to the Wednesday one too. I enjoy it. It's on Zoom. So yeah, come join us. But we'll find out that time is ticking. So let's do our meditation.
Very good. All right. So we'll start out with the sound of the bell, and you can just appreciate it. Like hear the sound as it sort of like drifts out to its completion, and just let that be sort of the mind, like instead of like constantly hitting it, hearing the reverberation of each thought and sort of lingering on that and seeing the space between the thoughts, feeling what their echo is, so that we can get an appreciation for those thoughts that don't proliferate, but that just have a positive reverberation in the mind, and then allow the mind to rejoin stillness. We might find that very, very rarely in the human realm is there ever anything approaching complete silence. Instead, what we have is a variety of background noise, of sound. For us, there are airplanes, there are cars, there's the rattling of heaters. Harmless background noises. And you have your own, whether they be natural sounds or man-made sounds. Just the moving of the elements around us. These can be a wonderful way to benchmark the subtlety of the mind. We're always in the middle of an ocean of sound, yet very rarely are we aware of it all. When we start listening, naturally the mind starts speaking a bit less. So for this meditation, see if you can think of each thought that arises on its own, a conditioned phenomena. It's just like all the other background sounds, harmless and just passing by. See if you can feel the reverberation of the thought. Treating each thought like the ringing of the bell. And delighting as the reverberation of each thought drifts off into infinity. with each word, each thought, each feeling, gradually paying less attention to the object and more to the ringing and the quality of mind that receives the object and is always present.
All right, friends. We are in the final moments here of this Dhammapalooza. Adriana, look, we didn't have a huge drop off like we usually do. We lost a few people, but not too much. So, friends, before we do our final sharing of merits chanting, I want to go over the housekeeping stuff, as they say. So, if I do, as seen earlier in the Dhammapalooza, in the mornings at 8 a.m., we have a morning monastery experience where if you'd like to come to the stream, same place as this stream, and we do some precepts, some chanting, and then I do a little Dhamma talk, like a little thought of the day. And I don't know, once I leave here, I don't know when and if that's going to keep going. I do want to try to keep it going. In the on the West Coast, 5 a.m. Sorry. There's no good time for everybody to do a morning session in the world. That's just the way it goes, unfortunately. So it's my morning session. For somebody might join from, I don't know, Australia or somewhere in Asia,
session,
and it'll be the evening session. Exactly. There you go. So I do that, and you can check out my website for a variety of other things. If you'd like to kind of find out what I do and when I do it, if you email subscribe on the website, then you'll get all the information because I post there. Magasika.org is my website. And Bante, if you like to.
And likewise, doing stuff with upavana.org, and that's an organization eventually hoping to have a physical location in Western Massachusetts, where I wandered for several years. But for this time during the pandemic, like Bante, trying to just keep community going in a virtual sense. And there's teachings and events and all that stuff. So you can also keep an eye on there. And between the two of us, you can pack your week full of Dhamma activities.
Yeah. So you have your Zoom session Wednesday nights.
Wednesday nights at 7 to 9. And Fridays, there is 8 to 9 meditation. This Friday will be the Maga full moon. Which is actually one of the Buddhist holidays. So we'll have a special event starting at 8 and going until midnight. So you can join for any part of that if you like.
All right. So question, what does Magasika mean? So Magga is the same Magga as we see in the Aryo Atangiko Maggo. Magga means path, road. So this is talking about the Noble Eightfold Path. Sekka means a trainee or a student, right? So if you go on to my YouTube channel, the name of the YouTube channel is Student of the Path, right? So Magasika is the Pali way to say student of the path. You can, if you go on our Discord channel, the Discord Sangha that we run, that is also called Student of the Path / Magasika. So Adriana has a question.
And yes, Adriana, I am following the Thai calendar that is on the wall over there. That's I'm in the city, and I don't think I've seen the moon the entire time I've been here. So I'm just going to have to take it on hearsay.
Yeah. So that's what Magasika is. What is explain Upavana?
Upavana, Upa means close, and Vana means forest. So the only time it's ever used in a Pali context, it means like a park or a grove. But one possible way of using it is to be close to the forest. So either creating a park, a patch of forests where one can practice in the way of the forest tradition, or just being close to nature, which is how I'm kind of selling it.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. That's my kind of thing. All right. Okay, friends. So I think we can do our chanting for the sharing of merits. Dukkha patta chani dukkha, bhaya patta chani bhaya, soka patta hani soka, hontu sabbe pipaniyo, etavata cha amehi, sampadang punya sampadang, sabbe deva anumodantu, sabba sampatti siddhya, akasata cha bhummata deva naga mahiddhika, punyang tang anumoditva, charang rakantu sasanam. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we've thus acquired, for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Yeah, Adriana. So, I help run an online sangha on a Discord program. And if you are interested in, if you have the early text as part of your framework for your practice, or if you're interested in learning the early texts and, practicing in such a way, then you can join us if you like. Adriana, you can put the email, and if you'd like to get an invite, you can send an email.
Yes. Now all sanghas can be local through the power of the internet.
Yeah. It's magasika@gmail.com. Magasika is once you get Magasika, then you can't go wrong. It's nice and easy. Right? Yeah. Upavana is even easier. It's only one word. Yes. Magasika is 2 words. So, okay, friends. Until next time, Sukhiyotu, may you be happy. Practice well and be well.